Hello and welcome to the Crafting Shares. I'm Ruth from Beltane Gifts, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make one of these, which is a needle felted toadstool. Now these are great if you're going to be making any dioramas or anything fairy related. I personally am planning to turn this one into a little diorama, and the next video along is going to have a little character to go in it. So definitely, if you haven't pressed it already, click on that subscribe button and the bell icon so that you don't miss any future videos. Also, if you enjoy the video, be sure to give me that thumbs up. It really does help me out. And a big shout out to everybody who's subscribed so far. Thank you guys, I really do appreciate it. Okay, so for today's project, you're going to need some finger protectors, a selection of needles. I've got my small, medium and large generic needles here, a felting pad, which for me is just a cloth bag full of rice, a pipe cleaner. I'm using kind of a beige colour one, but you can use any colour, just as long as you cover it properly when you wrap. And we're going to need two colours of fibre. I'm using some cream natural eider roving. The eider is a breed of German hill sheep and it's quite a coarse fibre. You don't need to use this, this is just what I've got a lot of lying around. So I'm going to be using this for the main part of our mushroom. And then for the top of the mushroom I'm using some Corridel roving, and the colour of this is called Begonia. It's kind of an orangey red, but you can use any colour that you like for this. So we're going to start off with our pipe cleaner and we're going to fold it in half, and then we're just going to twist all the way along, and we want to twist it so it's quite tightly put together. This is going to give the stem most of its strength, so we want to combine it just so that it's just that bit sturdier. Okay, so if you wind it together completely, what we're going to do is work out how long we want the stem to be. So for me, I'm going to have quite a long stem. So probably about so long. We're going to add just a little bit more, so about there, and what we're going to do is we're just going to fold it and start wrapping it round, and this is just to create just a little end to it there, and this is just so we know where we're going to be wrapping everything to, and it just gives the top of it just a bit of bulk. So first we're going to need our eider roving, and the handy thing with this roving is that it's already in long lengths, so we're just going to pull off a section, pop on our finger protectors. We're just going to go to the end of the stem. You're going to lay the end of the roving just over it, just so you've got a couple of centimetres going up the length. We're going to pinch it in place and we're going to start wrapping around. And what we want to be doing is just wrapping over the end that we're holding on to, and what this does, it'll just hold everything in place, so as long as you keep your tension nice and tight. So here I'm just using my finger here just to direct the fibre. I'm tensioning it just by wrapping my fingers across, and I'm using my thumb just to pinch. It just keeps it nice and tight. We're going to work our way just twisting all the way up the length. Now don't worry too much at this stage because we're going to go a lot thicker with this stem. We just want to get the fibre up to the top here, and I'm going to keep wrapping at this point because toadstools tend to have a thicker section right at the top, so we're just going to bulk out the fibre there a little, and then right at the end, just when we've got just a little bit left, I'm going to make sure that's right underneath our rounded section there. I'm going to pull it really tight so it gets caught up in there. And what this does is it's just going to connect to itself and get caught up in that pipe cleaner, and that holds everything in place. It's not going to come apart now, which is great. So we're going to do the same thing again, another section of roving, lay it over the end and just start winding. And you just want to make sure that you're always winding in the same direction, just because otherwise you can end up undoing your previous work. Now this time I'm going to take it quite slow. I want to get quite a nice smooth finish for this bit, because I think for me this will be the finished thickness of the stem. So you might want to just give it a little rub, just make sure that everything's lying nice and smooth. Go, and just like before, we want all that extra fibre right up the top here, and when we get to the last tiny section there, which is quite thin, again we're going to wrap that just underneath the round section here, just until we've got everything tucked in and stuck together. Now see here, the end of my fibre is starting to come loose, so we can grab a needle. I'm using my finest one here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to do some little stabs, but I want to connect with the fibre and kind of push it under where we've wrapped. You have to run parallel to your pipe cleaner. We don't want to hit the pipe cleaner just because the metal can break our needles. So take this really slow and careful and just catch any loose fibres there and tuck them in. There we go. So just want to finish off this top bit and make it even thicker. So I'm just going to pull off one last section, and this time I'm just going to reduce it a little bit, so just a shorter piece this time, and exactly the same as before. We're just going to pinch just a little end, but we're starting further up, so I just want this section here upwards to be thicker, so I'm placing my end just there and starting to wrap. And this time I'm just going to have to do a little bit of stabbing with the end, just because there wasn't as much to wrap around. So I'm stabbing in the direction that I was twisting. I'm just catching those loose ends and just stabbing them into the rest of the fibre, again being careful not to connect with that pipe cleaner. And also, just to define where this extra section starts, I'm going to be stabbing up along the length of the pipe cleaner there and just catching that extra bit of fibre and just really defining where it ends. And by stabbing up towards the top, what this does is it just pushes all the fibres that I'm catching just underneath each other and just really bulking out that line. So we need to attach the top now, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to start off by using some of the eider fibre, the cream. Just because if you look at some of the mushrooms and toadstools, if you look up, they've got a different colour. In this case it's going to be cream to the underside of the cap, and then the cap over the top will be a different contrasting colour, like in this case the red. So I'm taking my eider and I'm just messing it up, and we want to create a ball of this that we can place on top and then just kind of felt into position. So get it as messy as you can, and then I'm just going to roll it into a bit of a ball, pop it on the top, use my finger just to hold it in place, and then with my felting needle I'm just going to do a few little stabs, and what I'm doing is just trying to attach it to this fibre here that we've got at the top, just underneath that pipe cleaner that we've twisted. And I'm going to keep working my way around, just stabbing it into place there, just until I've got a ball of fibre that's just resting on top. And again, take this slow and careful. We don't want to be stabbing into that pipe cleaner. Once you've managed to attach it round the base there, what we're going to do is start working our way up, just stabbing inwards, just bringing that fibre in around that pipe cleaner. And what we want to do is create a nice protective coating around it, so we've got something solid to stab into without damaging the needle. Okay, because it's quite fluffy still, what I'm going to do is just pinch between finger and thumb a little bit and just bring those fibres just that bit closer together, which means it makes it quicker and easier to stab them. Once that's started to firm up a little bit, I can stab just from the top there, just to bring things in. And then just stab over the whole thing, just until it starts tightening up. Okay, so I'm going to start stabbing straight down now, just to flatten out this fibre where it's got pushed as we've changed the shape above. And we just want to create a nice kind of flat rim, so I'm using little stabs quite close together and stabbing straight down, which is pushing everything there upwards. Okay, so the shape's starting to get there. We need to add a bit more fibre to it, I think, so I'm just going to add some more of the eider on top, and again just going to pull it apart and mess it up a bit and then roll it together a little bit. Oops. And then that can just go on top over the whole thing. And what we'll do is just attach by stabbing downwards at the top and then work our way down, and if you keep rotating as we're stabbing, that gives us a nice even coverage and just brings all that excess towards where we want it. Now we want a nice dome shape at the top, so what you have to do is imagine that there's a line going through the centre, up towards the top of it, and you just need to stab always towards that central line around the outside here, and this way as you go it's just going to keep that nice rounded shape. And right at the top you just have to imagine that there's a point part way down, and your needle just always needs to be aiming towards that point. And if you keep doing that, you'll get a nice rounded dome shape. Now, if you haven't made a dome before, there is a video that I've done previously on how to make a dome, and it's definitely a handy one to know. I'll put the link down in the description. Okay, so if you've got some extra fibre towards the base, we're just going to turn it upside down and just fold that in. And to flatten this off, when it comes to this section here, we're always stabbing at a 90-degree angle, and that just gives us a nice flat underside. Okay, so if you have a look at the whole thing, rotate it a little bit, what we want to do is try and get things reasonably even and smooth, so just stab as needed. And once you're happy with it, it's time to cover up with our other colour. So I'm going to take some of my red, and I'm going to do this in small sections this time because I just want to get a nice even coverage. So I'm just going to pull off some bits, again make them nice and messy, start that felting process, roll them together. Then I'm just going to lay it over the top, and then with little stabs quite close together, I'm just going to work my way over the whole surface, just adding more and more until the whole thing's covered. We want to leave this section here though cream, so we're just going to go right up to the edge but no further. And when I'm covering, what I'd like to do is bring in the fibre in a little bit. I don't put any pressure on it, I let it move loose and just kind of tuck it in, bring it in towards the centre of the patch that I'm working on, and then leave the outside bit a little bit fluffy because we want them to all blend in together. So take your next patch and we're just going to overlay it slightly over the bit we've just been working on, and then start stabbing into place. And you don't want to pull these fibres taut as you're working, because you'll find that if you did, when you stab you'll end up with lots of lines. So we want it to be able to move of its own accord. We're just going to catch little bits of it, tuck it in without putting any sideways pressure on your needle. And we're not going to get it completely finished at this point, we're just going to go over it just to make sure it's not too fluffy, so all the big bits are kind of tacked into place. Okay, so once all of your fibres pretty much in place, what we're going to do is start going over everything, but I'm going to start by this edge here. So I'm just going to take little jabs and just work in a line just around the outside, just catching any loose bits of red fibre and just stabbing them where they need to go. And what we want is as little bleed through of colour as we can get onto the cream, so we've got a nice well-defined straight line just around the edge. And the reason that I'm doing this outside edge first is because as I start stabbing further up, it's going to tighten all those fibres, and some of them will want to draw away from the edge, which we don't want. So by pinning them in place now, what's going to happen is they'll just tighten against this edge and we'll keep that nice sharp line no matter what happens with the rest of it. There we go, so what I'm going to do now is just go over the whole surface with little jabs close together. Don't want to go too deep, we don't want to change the shape too much. We just want to smooth everything out and give us a nice finish. There we go, so we've covered that now with the red fibre. I've just gone over the base as well just to make sure that that's nice and smooth and the line's reasonably neat. And what we need to do lastly is just to add some dots. So to do that I'm going to be using some more of the Ida, and I'm just going to pull off some really fine sections. So I'm not sure if you can see that there. And what I'm going to do is just roll them together between finger and thumb just to start that felting process and make just a ball of fibre. And then all we have to do is just lie it where we want it. A fine needle, just stab in the centre just to anchor it in place, and then we're just going to stab around the outside edge with the needle slightly pointing inwards towards where we've originally stabbed in the centre, and I'm just going to keep rotating, working my way round until the fibre starts to just come together and create that dot. And then all we have to do is just stab down over the top, just straight down now, just lightly over the whole area with lots of little jabs very close together, and then just work around the outside edge just one last time, just catching any of these loose fibres and just tucking them in. We want quite a nice smooth clean edge. Now if you do find that you've got a couple of little loose fibres, what you can do is just with the point of your needle just work round and round, just around the outside of your shape. And what this should do is hopefully catch some of these loose fibres and then just stab straight down, and that just tucks them just down into the dot you've made. And you just repeat this, adding them at random all over the top of the mushroom or toadstool until you're finished. And there we go, there's our finished little toadstool. You can make these any size you wanted to. You can make them smaller or larger. I think this is quite a nice size for what I'm going to use it for, which is going to be a little diorama. You can play about with the shapes, you can change the colours and turn them into different sorts of mushroom if you wanted to, but the technique should stay the same.